everyone. I now note that the hour has come and this hearing is called to order. This is a public hearing of the City Council Committee on Housing, Neighborhood Development, and the Homeless. The purpose of this public hearing is to hear testimony on Bill number 240060. Ms. Jones, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Driscoll?
Present.
Councilmember Squilla?
Present.
Vice Chair Landau?
Present.
Chair Gaudier?
Present. I note for the record that a quorum of this committee is present and this hearing is called to order. Good morning, everyone. I'm grateful that today our committee will be considering Bill number 240060, which clarifies protections against housing discrimination for housing assistance program participants, particularly voucher holders. When my childhood best friend became a teenage mom and needed somewhere to live on a tight budget, she applied for and received a housing voucher. Being housing secure allowed my friend to focus on her future. She earned multiple master's degrees and has been a longtime public school teacher. This story isn't an anomaly. It's just one example of the tens of thousands of Black and brown Philadelphians, many of whom are single Black mothers, who lifted themselves out of poverty because they had affordable housing when they needed it the most. But today, illegal but tolerated discrimination undermines housing vouchers. A quarter to 1/3 of voucher holders cannot put their voucher to use. This means working families have no choice but to surrender their voucher along with hundreds of dollars in rental assistance each month that they are entitled to by law. Philadelphia landlords overwhelmingly ignore the law and openly discriminate against voucher holders, preventing our neighbors from accessing the safe, stable, and affordable homes that are crucial for a successful life, healthy communities, and a vibrant city. The City of Philadelphia cannot turn a blind eye to this injustice. We must tighten existing protections and get needy families into housing. The bill we are considering today does just that. It amends Philadelphia's Fair Practices Ordinance as it relates to source of income discrimination, which I understand was a pioneer as one of the first of its kind in the nation. And it brings our Fair Practices Ordinance in line with others nationwide by providing important clarity and updates. The bill does not actually change the anti-discrimination law, but rather makes what is already illegal clearer, which is that property owners and managers cannot discriminate against residents using housing vouchers. Whether we are talking about explicitly advertised discrimination or landlords intentionally slow-rolling repairs and paperwork to prevent a voucher holder from renting a unit. The bill also changes when private right of action kicks in if aggrieved households are working with legal assistance. I also have an amendment this morning that clarifies that these proposed changes only relate to housing discrimination matters specifically. My amendment also adds a 3-month effective date to allow the Philadelphia Commission on Human Relations additional time to make any necessary modifications to their current implementation practices. And it aligns the private right of action procedure to be more akin to that in the Renters Access Act, which does not require PCHR review if aggrieved residents obtain legal assistance. This bill is necessary because sadly, we know these practices hurt voucher holders. We know that these practices that hurt voucher holders are very real. A recent local study found that 67% of landlords citywide refuse to accept housing vouchers. In low poverty neighborhoods, this number jumps to 83%. This legislation is a direct result of some of the recommendations that came out of an exploratory hearing I held in this committee last year. We cannot sit on our hands while literally thousands of families who are entitled to this precious financial resource are illegally prevented from accessing safe, stable, and affordable homes. These vouchers represent some of the largest and most direct means we have to combat our city's affordable housing crisis. And we know that cities with strong source of income discrimination laws see higher voucher utilization rates. In a climate where we are losing hundreds of low-cost apartments every year and gaining hundreds more high-priced ones in their stead, vouchers are one of our best tools to level the playing field for working families. While I know that any government program can come with challenges, vouchers provide property owners with consistent and sometimes higher than market rate payments, making them a win-win-win for government, property owners, and families alike. Thank you, and I very much look forward to the discussion. Do any of my colleagues have any opening remarks? Say anything?
Light's not on. Thank you, Chair Gaudier. This is just the second time in the same month where my worlds have come together in such a great way, where as a former housing lawyer at CLS, where I represented low-income tenants, all subsidized tenants for 10 years, and then oversaw the Human Relations Commission for 12 years, this is exactly the way in which our laws need to work, and that our legislative body needs to step in to make things more explicit at times when it's not crystal clear to landlords that you cannot discriminate against people based on source of income, including having vouchers. If you look back to the time when I was a lawyer at CLS, there were many more public housing units than there are now. But times have changed from the way HUD works and what they want to fund and the housing authority itself, that there's more people that are getting vouchers now and are allowed to go out, shop around, and go find their own place to live, their own subsidized housing, no matter where it is in Philadelphia. But we have seen time and time again landlords turning away people with vouchers, saying that they don't rent to people with vouchers, and that is just wrong. It is illegal, it is unfair, it is discriminatory, and it's for our city that tends to be segregated by race. It is also extremely discriminatory and underscores and underlines the segregation that has occurred. Vouchers should be people's passes to move from one neighborhood to another, to rent to wherever they can within that income guidelines. It should be a place where they can flee harm, where they can find a new beginning, or where they can establish their roots. But if we have landlords saying no illegally to people using their vouchers, we can't ever have tenants have the freedom that they should have, that they deserve, that this is just a small subsidy for low-income folks when we know that the city's wages have not risen throughout, for workers in Philadelphia, the wages have not risen to the point where people can just feel like they can rent wherever. People need vouchers simply to subsidize their rent so they can keep on with their jobs, keep their kids in their schools, keep becoming, staying a part of the fabric of the community. We cannot have landlords doing this anymore. And again, all this law does is make what was implicit more explicit, and making sure that we're sending a clear message that we can't have this anymore in Philadelphia. So thank you so much, Chair, for bringing this bill. Thank you for the partners who are going to testify today, and looking forward to it.
Ms. Jones, will you now read the title of the bill?
Bill number 240060, amending Chapter 9-1100 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Fair Practices Ordinance, Protections Against Unlawful Discrimination, to clarify and enhance protections against housing discrimination for housing assistance program participants, to modify certain procedures for investigation of housing discrimination complaints and conciliation, appeal and election of civil action of all complaints filed with the Commission, and to make related technical changes, all under certain terms and conditions.
The clerk will please call the first panel of witnesses to testify on the resolution.
Mimi McKenzie, Vilna Rodron Gaston, Tamar Hoffman, and Sherry Thomas.
Good morning. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning. I'm Mimi McKenzie, the Legal Director at the Public Interest Law Center. Thank you to the committee for allowing me to testify today in support of Bill number 240060. In our housing practice, the Law Center seeks to stop discrimination and to promote healthy, affordable housing for people in the neighborhoods of their choice. As members of this committee are well aware, the City of Philadelphia has an affordable housing crisis. 54% of Philadelphian renters are cost-burdened. That means they pay at least 30% of their income on housing costs. The problem is most acute for renters with incomes below $30,000 per year, 88% of whom are cost-burdened and 68% are severely cost-burdened, meaning they spend at least 50% of their income on their rent. The Housing Choice Voucher Program, commonly referred to as Section 8, is the federal government's program for providing financial assistance to low-income families to enable them to afford decent, safe housing in the private rental market. Administered by the Philadelphia Housing Authority, there are about nearly 20,000 voucher holders in Philadelphia, 84% of whom are Black, and 70% of whom earn less than $20,000 per year. But as you have heard, Philadelphians with a voucher face a steep challenge finding landlords who will accept their subsidy. The study was previously mentioned, showing 67% of Philadelphia landlords refuse to accept vouchers. More recent data tells the same story. As of May 27, 2024, nearly 30% of Philadelphia households who received an emergency housing voucher failed to secure housing within 6 months of voucher issuance. This discrimination occurs with disturbing frequency, notwithstanding Philadelphia's Fair Practice Ordinance, which explicitly prohibits landlords from refusing to rent to individuals based on source of income. Since 2019, the Law Center has been working to increase enforcement of Philadelphia's Fair Practices Ordinance. Bill number 240060 strengthens the ordinance's enforcement scheme, namely giving a complainant the option to immediately file a private right of action in a court of competent jurisdiction. Currently, any source of income discrimination complaint requires administrative exhaustion at the commission, meaning that a complainant must first file their allegations of discrimination with the commission before proceeding to court. The commission then has a full year of exclusive jurisdiction while it investigates or otherwise contemplates the complaint. Philadelphia's ordinance is actually an outlier in that of the top 20 most populous cities in the country that have source of income protections, only Philadelphia and Denver require administrative exhaustion. But more importantly, the Commission simply does not have sufficient resources to timely respond to and investigate complaints of source of income discrimination in housing. Administrative exhaustion, which is intended to promote an efficient system of justice, ends up being a barrier to justice under the ordinance. By way of example, for 4 complaints our office filed, the Commission took between 11 months and 2 years to complete its investigation. That's just too long. For starters, tenants have a limited amount of time in which to use or lose their housing choice voucher. At the Law Center, we had 2 recent cases where our clients' vouchers expired after filing their complaints and before they found a place to live. Although we were able to obtain extensions from PHA at the last minute, tenants who are unable to find a landlord to accept their voucher can permanently lose that voucher. Moreover, tenants who contact us are desperate to find housing. They're often not interested in spending time pursuing a complaint against a property owner who discriminated against them unless it helps them secure housing. The option for a quicker process that could result in a tenant securing a place to live would better serve the ordinance purpose and provide a more meaningful outcome for the tenant. This is often the case when a prospective tenant has a physical disability and finds a unique unit that accommodates their needs, like a first-floor apartment with a wide enough door to allow a wheelchair to pass. In the last year, the Law Center had a client with disabilities who was rejected from an accessible unit because of their voucher. Although we filed a complaint on their behalf, it took our client 10 additional months before they found another accessible unit. In their interim, they were homeless. They were forced to couch surf with family and friends. Given the city's severe lack of affordable housing for people with disabilities, especially those with physical impairments that require accessible units, our client needed injunctive relief to change the landlord's behavior in the immediate term. Specifically, our client needed an order requiring the housing provider to process the application in a non-discriminatory manner so the client did not lose the opportunity to secure housing. Although Section 9-11102 of the ordinance contemplates that the law department can seek an injunction at the Commission's request if the Commission believes that the unit could be rented before a final determination is made, we've learned that the Commission is not set up to do that. Bill number 240060 would allow a tenant to bypass the Commission and immediately file a complaint in court and, among other things, seek immediate injunctive relief. Fair housing laws realize their objective when they're accompanied by this type of robust enforcement. At the same time, the ability to pursue a private right of action will not help tenants who do not have access to a lawyer. Therefore, it is also critical to allow complainants to have the option to pursue an administrative complaint with the Commission. And to that end, a strong, well-resourced Commission is invaluable for ensuring compliance with the law. We urge City Council to not only pass Bill number 240060, but to ensure that the Commission has sufficient resources to promptly investigate and resolve complaints concerning source of income discrimination in housing. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of this legislation.
Thank you for that great testimony and for your work. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Vilna Waldron Gaston. Thank you for this opportunity to present testimony on the proposed legislation. I'm a staff attorney in the Tenant Rights Project at the Senior Law Center. At Senior Law Center, we seek justice for older adults by using the power of the law, educating the community, and advocating on local, state, and national levels. Our Tenant Rights Project provides representation and advocacy to tenants facing various landlord-tenant issues, including evictions, ejectments, Fair Housing Commission complaints, as well as providing advice to tenants regarding the Renters Access Act. The Philadelphia Code already prohibits housing discrimination, including based on source of income. Such discrimination would encompass, quote, refusing to sell, rent, or lease, or otherwise discriminate in the terms, conditions, or privileges of the sale, rental, or lease of any housing accommodation on the basis of source of income. The City Council already took action to enact legislation to outlaw discrimination against both current tenants and applicants for rental housing where such discrimination was based on their status as recipients of housing financial aid. But notwithstanding the clear prohibitions, discrimination continues against both applicants for housing and existing tenants based on their source of income. Senior Law Center is on the front line of the housing crisis, and we often engage with older tenants while they're looking for housing, either as part of the eviction process or because of other problems they are experiencing with their landlord. These tenants regularly report that they are having trouble finding a landlord who will accept their rental subsidy. We also have cases where the landlord seeks to terminate the lease after having received direction from PHA to make repairs to the property to address habitability issues found at the rental premises. Based on our experience in representing tenants, many landlords either do not understand that the discrimination prohibitions of Section 9-1100 extend to the Housing Choice Voucher Program and all rental assistance programs, or are simply indifferent to their violation of the law. The exclusion of tenants from eligibility for housing based solely on the source of income, and in particular the receipt of the Housing Choice Voucher Program, has a profound negative impact on tenants, especially older tenants. Housing Choice Vouchers and other rental subsidies, as indicated before, are life-saving for tenants, particularly for older tenants on fixed incomes who we represent. They guarantee that a landlord can get paid a market price for the property, which means that they can maintain the premises. They also ensure that while nationwide households are spending more and a greater percentage of their income on rent, that voucher holders are guaranteed to only spend about 1/3 of their income on rent. For an older adult on a fixed income, this usually means the difference between being safely housed and being homeless. However, in order for tenants to be able to take advantage of the program, they must find a landlord who will rent to them. Given the current environment of increasing rents not keeping up with income for older population we serve, the pool of available affordable units for rent is already limited. Discrimination based on source of income only further restricts availability, in turn reducing the housing opportunity of voucher holders as compared to non-voucher holders. Consequently, voucher holders may be forced to accept less desirable units, move outside their current communities, or face homelessness. The risk and immediacy of homelessness increases as the tenant is also in the eviction process. The resulting housing insecurity is detrimental to the tenant and his or her family and to society as a whole. There is a particular adverse impact on older tenants who are deprived of the opportunity to age in place and who must uproot themselves in search of a landlord who accepts housing choice vouchers. Many of these tenants are afraid of moving to unfamiliar communities. Some of these tenants are on waiting lists for senior housing but must find some housing in the interim. Others prefer to continue living in the same communities where they know their neighbors and pharmacists and are closest to their doctors. For these reasons, the Senior Law Center applauds the step being taken by City Council to clarify that the prohibitions do apply to the housing choice vouchers. Housing is a fundamental right, arguably a human right for all individuals, and no individual should be denied housing simply because the rent payment is coming from one source rather than another. In addition, the senior law supports the changes that prohibits the landlord from negatively impacting the voucher eligibility of tenants simply by refusing to cooperate. Landlords sometimes fail to submit paperwork, leaving tenants at risk of losing their housing. In addition, sometimes landlords can refuse to make required repairs so that the property can fail inspection, ultimately leading to the removal of the property from the voucher program and in turn the eviction of the tenant. Newly proposed sections 9-1108 M and N address these situations involving a landlord's non-cooperation by specifically requiring landlords to cooperate in completing and submitting required information documentation. Clearly, we also support the streamlining of the private right of action, the right to sue against landlords who violate the law. This is a major improvement that recognizes the critical nature of housing in a person's life. 1 year is far too long for a grieved tenant to wait for relief given their continuing housing insecurity. We also think that will add some teeth in enforcing the anti-discrimination laws and holding landlords accountable. We strongly support the enactment of this legislation to both clarify and enhance existing housing discrimination prohibitions. The goal is to ensure non-discriminatory housing access and enjoyment for all Philadelphians, regardless of the source of the rent payment. This clarification will make it easier to enforce existing law and hold landlords accountable for any non-compliance. We look forward to the enactment of amendments, and where feasible, we will continue to work with Council on future legislative improvements to this and other laws, especially as they impact older Philadelphians. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony and your great work. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Tamar Hoffman. I'm a staff attorney at Community Legal Services. Thank you for the opportunity to address the committee in support of protections against source of income discrimination and housing. Each year, Community Legal Services represents over 3,000 families facing unfair housing practices and eviction. Many of our clients rely on housing subsidies, including vouchers and other forms of housing assistance, to stay in their homes. As part of our work, we often bear witness to the constant indignity and insecurity that families face when they are told over and over again by landlords that they will not rent to them because they have vouchers. For example, I recently represented a tenant, Ms. W., who was forced to remain in unsafe housing with a severe rodent infestation, leaks, and mold for over a year because she was unable to sign a lease elsewhere due to discrimination. Another tenant who I represented, Ms. R., struggled with deepening depression and even suicidal ideation related to the prolonged housing search and challenges that she faced trying to lease up with her voucher. Ms. W. and Ms. R's experiences are unfortunately all too common among voucher holders in Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, the Fair Practices Ordinance has included source of income discrimination as a protected class since 1980. This means that tenants whose rent is either fully or partially paid by the Philadelphia Housing Authority in the form of a voucher are protected from discrimination. The PHRC currently accepts these complaints and has long upheld these protections. Despite this, the reality is that landlords still routinely and often publicly refuse to rent to tenants with vouchers. For this reason, we are grateful that this bill further clarifies what we already know to be true, which is that it is unlawful to deny rental housing to tenants based on their status as voucher holders. This law will also increase the ability for tenants to exercise their rights and protect their ability to find safe and stable housing using their vouchers for their families. Obtaining a rental subsidy is very challenging. The voucher waiting list in Philadelphia last opened last year for the first time in over 13 years. And at that time, fewer than 1/3 of eligible households who applied were selected for the waiting list, not for the voucher, just for the waiting list, which closed again 3 weeks later. Many tenants have been on that waiting list since then, facing housing insecurity in the meantime. And unfortunately, many families who have somehow cleared the hurdles of receiving a voucher remain precariously housed due to pervasive source of income discrimination. Landlords across Philadelphia decline to rent to voucher holders, often failing to respond to low-income tenants who are forced to spend substantial portions of their limited income on application fee after application fee after application fee. And as a result, some tenants are unable to utilize their vouchers at all and lose them, which is just a heartbreaking conclusion to what is often a multi-year saga of trying to fight for housing stability. Many tenants, in an effort to lease up before their vouchers expire, end up steered towards the only properties that will reliably accept vouchers. And those properties are often substandard housing, and they are riddled with repair issues and health hazards, including mold, lead, and inadequate cooling and heating. Voucher holders are also steered away from wealthier and whiter neighborhoods and towards neighborhoods with the highest concentrations of poverty, reinforcing segregation. In the years to come, Philadelphia is likely to see a rise in voucher holders. As a result of decades of federal housing policy development, thousands of subsidized housing units in our city are slated for conversion from unit-based subsidies to voucher programs that end up following the tenant. As a growing proportion of Philadelphia's tenants come to depend on housing choice vouchers and rental vouchers for use in the private market, these protections against source of income discrimination in housing are particularly important. Community Legal Services is thankful to all of you for this opportunity to testify and for hearing for this hearing, and we look forward to continued collaboration with partners and City Council in building towards a future in which all tenants, regardless of their source of income, can access safe and affordable housing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your testimony and for your work and partnership. I wanted to ask of any or all of you, what value do you think this bill would bring in protecting against large companies intentionally filtering out voucher tenants?
I'm sorry, filtering out was...
Voucher tenants.
The ability to have more robust enforcement in all different forums, I think is critically important. And I see at the Law Center, as we start to challenge large landlords who are turning away voucher holders, you know, there does eventually start to be a domino effect. When landlords understand that there are consequences for ignoring Philadelphia law, that has a huge deterrent effect. This law already has great bones, if you will. It has all the hallmarks of important enforcement. It provides for compensatory damages. It provides for attorney's fees and costs. It provides for injunctive relief. So now we just need to use that law to hold landlords accountable, and I think the more that that happens, the more compliance you'll see, and frankly, academic studies bear that out.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, where have you seen this type of law, when effective, have sort of that deterrent effect?
Sure, so if you look at examples like in New York City and in Washington, D.C., where they have robust enforcement of their source of income, discrimination prohibitions, the rate of voucher utilization is significantly improved.
Thank you. Councilmember Landau?
Yeah, I wanted to note, especially from those areas of New York and DC, is there also a normalization of using vouchers? I mean, to me, we all come to rent housing with a variety of different income sources. It could be from work, it could be from child support, it could be from public benefits, it could be a Section 8 voucher. These are just ways in which we have money or subsidies in order to rent a space. And so is there any kind of normalization of the voucher use? Is it still feeling so fraught and so other in those places?
I don't have at the top of my fingertips like a study that shows that, but I do know anecdotally, as you start to talk to landlords who become familiar with the program's requirements, that many landlords actually end up really appreciating the benefits of the program. You know, you have a direct payment that is guaranteed, that's paid by the federal government every month. So there are actually a lot of positives when you talk to landlords. But I can follow up, and if I'm happy to send you anything from those experiences from other cities.
To me, the most amazing part, out of all the other income sources I was saying, having a Section 8 voucher as a subsidy, 70% of your rent is guaranteed by the federal government every month. Every month. I know landlords who love this. Say, this is great. Even if the tenant had a hard time, falls behind, it's still only 30% of harm to catch up. 70% of your rent is guaranteed by the feds. Sounds like a good deal to me.
Yeah.
Another, I think, pro is that for landlords, as long as you have a good landlord who's acting in good faith under law and who's keeping up their property as they should be, there's also obligation for the tenants to keep up their side of the bargain for certain repairs are actually assigned to the tenant. So it goes both ways. So both the tenant and the landlord have obligations under the Housing Choice Voucher Program.
Great, thank you all for your testimony. Were you going to add something?
No, that's all right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Will the clerk please call the next panel to testify?
Kia Gee.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
All right. Good morning. My name is Kia Gee. Good morning, Chairperson Gauthier and members of the Committee on Housing, Neighborhood Development, and the Homeless. Thank you for allowing me an opportunity to testify in support of this bill. I am Kia Gee, the Executive Director of the Philadelphia Commission on Human Relations. As the city's official civil rights enforcement agency, our office administers and enforces the Fair Practices Ordinance, which protects Philadelphians from unlawful discrimination in housing. I am here today to testify in support of Bill number 240060, which aims to strengthen protections against source of income discrimination, particularly concerning housing choice voucher programs. As the executive director of the agency that enforces Philadelphia's anti-discrimination laws, I have seen firsthand the insidious ways in which this form of discrimination and all forms of discrimination perpetuate inequality and hinder social mobility. Source of income discrimination occurs when a landlord refuses to rent to individuals based on their lawful sources of income. This includes income derived from public assistance, disability benefits, Social Security, child support, and housing choice voucher programs. Such discrimination is unjust because it denies individuals and families the basic right to secure housing. We live in a time when the cost of living continues to rise and affordable housing becomes increasingly scarce. In Philadelphia, the Housing Choice Voucher Program serves approximately 20,000 families. For many of them, Housing Choice Voucher programs are the lifelines that ensure their ability to keep a roof over their heads. It also provides these families with essential financial assistance that allows them to access to decent housing in Philadelphia's private rental market. Despite the undeniable benefits of this program, as the other panelists have said, many families still face far too many barriers when seeking a place to live simply because of how they paid their rent. This bill provides greater protection for renters using housing choice vouchers by explicitly prohibiting landlords from communicating or advertising that they do not accept Section 8 housing choice vouchers, and prohibiting them from refusing to make repairs or refusing to comply with minor administrative requirements of the housing choice voucher program. The bill, importantly, also offers an expedited private right of action for renters whose rights are violated. Changes like those proposed in this bill have been shown to substantially reduce the number of landlords who refuse to accept vouchers, and it also increases access to higher opportunity neighborhoods. In Philadelphia, we are known for our diversity. Source of income discrimination, however, undermines the city's goal of fair housing practices, of enhancing fair housing practices across all neighborhoods. Moreover, discriminatory practices disproportionately affect the most vulnerable members of our community, including people of color, women, individuals with disability, and those with lower income. It also exacerbates existing inequalities and perpetuates a cycle of poverty and instability. PCHR is committed to ending discriminatory practices and all form of discrimination. We support stronger legal protections that explicitly prohibit source of income discrimination in housing. This includes ensuring that landlords cannot refuse applicants based on lawful sources of income, and that they cannot set different terms or conditions for tenants who rely on these sources. We recognize that many landlords do not fully understand the implications of their discriminatory practices or the benefits of accepting a diverse range of income sources. We plan to continue to use the resources allocated to us to engage in more robust public education campaigns to inform both tenants and landlords about their rights and responsibilities. Furthermore, we will continue to seek additional resources that will allow us to strengthen our enforcement mechanisms to ensure that violations of these protections are met with appropriate consequences. In closing, we stand ready to partner with City Council to enforce these and other protections for Philadelphia's most vulnerable populations. Thank you for your time, and I am available for any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for your testimony, but thanks also for your collaboration in this work. A lot of the bill's key tenets came from your testimony at our hearing last year, and so we really appreciate you. I also want you to know that we're rooting for PCHR to get more resources, and we think that that's very important. I wanted to ask, how in particular do you think that explicitly prohibiting written or verbal communication that a landlord does not accept housing vouchers will help PCHR's work?
I think explicitly prohibiting advertisement and communication that a landlord doesn't accept a housing choice voucher is significant in a number of ways. First, it stops the signaling to prospective tenants that they cannot rent there. It also informs the landlord of their responsibility to not discriminate against against tenants based on their lawful sources of income. I think that when it is clear that they cannot do that in advertising, they will not do that. And when you couple that with the remedy of having a private right of action, where a tenant can seek immediate redress for any damages that they incur, and you can enjoin those landlords from taking such actions, then I think you are in a better position to fully realize the benefit of this law.
Thank you. Councilmember Landau.
Just one quick comment. First, thank you for all of your work. And second of all, thank you for committing to a public education campaign, because I think sometimes our work that we do, we're doing just in silos or are not as forward-looking as we need to be. And now this post-pandemic time, we need to make sure that it is clear as day and we're sending the message really strong to landlords throughout the city, and you are the perfect agency to do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony.
Okay, thank you.
Will the clerk please call the next panel to testify?
Gianni Parenti.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Gianni Parenti. My name is Gianni Parenti. I am the Northeast U.S. Multifamily Investment Officer for EQT Exeter, one of the largest real estate private equity managers in the world, based in Radnor, Pennsylvania. I live in South Philadelphia and have been responsible for the development of over 1,000 units in the city of Philadelphia in 3 large projects. I have also been responsible for the developments and acquisitions in the DC area, Delaware, Boston, and Providence, Rhode Island. Our latest project, The Clark, located at 46 and Chestnut, is a 327-unit building with 10% of the units reserved for residents earning 60% of the area median income or less. As we were opening the building late last year, we were approached to see if we might have the ability to house some of the residents of the University City townhomes. I believe at this time there were about a dozen folks who had not found replacement housing and needed to be in University City for one reason or another. We had the units available that were being set aside as affordable, so that worked out well. The one wrinkle was that the UC townhome residents were housing choice voucher holders and could not immediately income qualify even for the affordable units. We had no experience as a firm with housing choice vouchers, but we were willing to give it a try. The process was relatively painless to become a first-time HCV landlord with only a minimal delay. We were required to submit some paperwork and take a training course, and took approximately 30 days. In a brand new building with first-generation leases, there was not much capital expense work that had to be done for the units to qualify. While only a handful of the UC townhome residents chose our building, we continued down the path to find HCV tenants to fill the remainder of the affordable units. Mostly, we were having trouble finding prospects that made enough money to qualify for income-restricted units, but were also under the AMI threshold. The HCVs provided a good pipeline of prospects as we were introduced to several other organizations that place residents, such as the Veterans Multi-Service Center. Today, most of our HCV residents have come through either PHA housing fairs, the UC townhomes, or the VMC. We've had a good experience as a landlord, and we'll continue to pursue HCV residents for future buildings and projects in Philadelphia. There's an obvious need for more units. The PHA has been a very willing partner, and it makes good economic sense for our investors. Of the 33 affordable units at the Clark, approximately 30 are HCV holders. The HCV program has allowed us the flexibility to deal with any issues and concerns that have arisen, though far and few between. Some other interesting feedback that we've gotten is that the needs of the residents differ slightly from our market rate customers. HCV residents, especially ones with children, need game rooms and playgrounds, not pool tables and roof decks. We are taking this into consideration for future projects. Due to my good experience as an operator of apartments that accept housing choice vouchers, I'm here to voice support of Bill number 240060. Having very clear and consistent guidelines is important for the business community, so insofar as the bill clarifies any outstanding questions regarding HCVs, I believe it is useful. I am also supportive of having more landlords in the city accept HCVs as a means to produce affordable housing quickly and economically for those that need it so desperately. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for your testimony and for your efforts to rehouse the University City townhome tenants. I wanted to ask you, do you see this bill as adding any new burdens to your operations?
Not particularly, no.
Thank you. Vice Chair Landau, do you have any questions or comments?
I just had a clarifying question. I want to make sure I heard you right. Did you say you built your development with tax credits?
No, it's a market rate project. It was part of a remapping a while ago that remapped the property from RM1 to CMX3, and part of the agreement with the Spruce Hill Community Association was to include 10% of the units set aside for affordable housing.
Gotcha.
So that's at 60% AMI. 60% AMI is about, Councilwoman Gautier, you might remember off the top of your head better than me, but I'm going to say around $48,000 a year. So to afford the rent for if you only make $48,000 a year, even for an affordable unit, is still pretty tough, as you guys have talked about in some other properties. So the housing choice vouchers were used to fill up the affordable units.
Great, thank you. So it was a voluntary 10% as part of this agreement that you were doing?
Voluntary in exchange for a remapping, yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So you started using the program out of necessity to fill these affordable units, but you actually find that it works for your business model.
Yeah, I mean, to the credit of some of the hardworking folks in West Philadelphia and University City, I mean, we wouldn't probably have thought about it, except that this issue with the University City townhomes arose. And there was a couple folks, I remember one is an elderly woman whose husband needed to have care at Penn Presbyterian. So she needed to be within walking distance of the townhomes. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. So she actually was one of the residents that came and lived with us and resides at the Clark. So, you know, when we kind of heard that story, when it became more personal for here's the individuals we're talking about, it starts to kind of humanize the issue instead of make it a kind of a stigma.
Yeah, you know, and just for the benefit of Vice Chair Landau and Councilmember Driscoll, this development is in University City, close to transit, close to world-class healthcare systems, close to jobs. This is where we want to see affordable housing. This is where we want to see Section 8 vouchers be accepted. So thank you so much, Gianni. You're in a class by yourself today, but hopefully, you know, many other landlords will hear your words and adopt the same type of approaches.
I have actually heard, thank you for those kind words, I have actually heard of a couple other landlords that I've been talking to that have started to look into the program as a result. So hopefully, you know, well, good news.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Will the clerk please call the next panel?
Latoya Maddox, Garrett O'Dwyer, Tanya Carter.
Good morning, it's good to see you again.
Morning.
Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Latoya Maddox, and I am grateful to giving testimony on Bill 240060. So again, good morning, committee members. My name is Latoya Maddox. I'm a senior independent living specialist at Liberty Resources. Our mission at the Center for Independent Living is to ensure and support the rights of people with disabilities, enabling them to live and thrive within the community. I'd like to share an experience of one of our consumers, CS, who has been enduring voucher discrimination since July 2022. We assisted CS to obtaining a housing choice voucher, after which CS diligently searched for an accessible unit and a landlord willing to accept the voucher. She was unsuccessful. After much effort, CS found an accessible unit and pleaded with the landlord to accept the voucher, but the landlord refused. Desperate for housing, CS took the unit at market rate and is now dependent on family support to pay the rent. This situation is unsustainable, and CS's story is all too common. In Philadelphia, housing is scarce, and low-income individuals, especially those with disabilities living on Social Security, are in desperate need of subsidized housing. Obtaining a voucher is already a challenging process, but at Liberty Resources, we often find that even after securing a voucher, individuals face immense stress and fear because they cannot find landlords with accessible units willing to accept the voucher. Whether due to stigma or misinformation, we need landlords to be educated about housing choice vouchers and for the city to address the housing crisis by enforcing rules to protect our most vulnerable residents. The part of the proposed legislation that excites us the most is the immediate private right of action. Currently, individuals who face voucher discrimination must file their complaint with the Philadelphia Commission of Human Relations, which can take over a year to process. This timeline is impractical for voucher holders actively searching for housing. However, the proposed amendments would allow voucher holders to file discrimination complaints during and directly in court, enabling them to seek emergency relief. This change would be especially beneficial for those in need of accessible housing. allowing them to act swiftly when landlords refuse their voucher. For example, a voucher holder needing a wheelchair-accessible housing could immediately challenge a discriminatory landlord in court and secure a unit rather than waiting a year for the commission's decision. There's one more page, I think. No? Thank you for allowing me to testify today.
Thank you so much for your testimony and for your advocacy. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Garrett O'Dwyer, testifying for PACDC. Good morning, Chairperson Gauthier, Vice Chair Landau, members of the City Council's Committee on Housing, Neighborhood Development, and the Homeless. My name is Garrett O'Dwyer, and I'm the Associate Policy Director for the Philadelphia Association of Community Development Corporations, or PACDC. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before the Housing Committee in favor of Bill number 240060 that will enhance protections for housing voucher recipients by further clarifying landlord responsibilities and improving tenant remedies. We believe that housing is a human right and that all Philadelphians deserve to live in safe, affordable homes in communities of choice. After water, food, and oxygen, housing is a basic human need. When we lack access to safe, affordable housing, we're unable to thrive in other important ways. Our health suffers and our horizons darken as life outcomes are greatly diminished. For a variety of reasons, the private market has failed to be able to meet the needs of our lowest income neighbors. The Housing Choice Voucher Program is a critical component of our social safety net and allows thousands of Philadelphia families to live safely while maintaining affordability in areas that have seen dramatic increases in values. Unfortunately, too many property owners ignore their obligations under city law to offer tenancy irrespective of source of incomes. As a result, too many voucher holders are burdened in finding accommodations, and the value of the voucher program as a tool to combat displacement is greatly diminished. It is our hope that today's bill offers a strong corrective to this problem by clarifying landlord responsibilities under the city code, increasing the range of prohibited activities surrounding source of income discrimination, as well as improving a tenant's right to seek remedy. I'd like to thank Chairperson Gauthier for her leadership in introducing this bill and other legislation as part of her Defying Displacement campaign. Last year, PACDC released our Equitable Development Policy Platform, which we crafted with our 60 CDC members and with input from over 100 local and national experts. In it, we identified the need to combat the risk of displacement that comes with rising property values in our communities. This bill offers a critical contribution to those efforts, given the importance of the problem presented by the refusal of some landlords to accept housing vouchers. PACDC is once again grateful to be able to offer our enthusiastic support for Bill number 240060, and thank you for the opportunity to testify this morning.
Thank you so much for your testimony, but also for your support and partnership and advocacy. Ms. Carter, so good to see you.
Good to see you also.
Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Okay, my name is Tanja Carter. I'm the founder of It Takes a Village, A Helping Hands, which is an organization in the West Philadelphia area. We don't limit our services. However, we offer a variety of services to individuals, and one of our most largest calls are individuals who face this very problem with Section 8 vouchers. And after being introduced to the bill, 240060, I said, finally, this issue is being addressed. Becoming a client of the HCV program is a system within itself. However, the probability of finding landlords that doesn't discriminate against income is really slim to none, which sometimes forces its clients to either lose their voucher or settle for properties in communities that doesn't fit their standards, and unfortunately result in clients dealing with landlords whom are only interested in the rent only, not the upkeep of the property or anything like that. It gives me a great deal of pleasure to support our Councilwoman Jamie Gardier's bill 240060. Once again, she is placing the needs of the people first and making a difference by doing things differently. The Bill 240060 single out a significant part of the Section 8 program is called the Housing Choice Voucher Program, and for a long time, the choice aspect have been removed from the process.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to give that testimony, and thank you for all of your hard work that you do in the community every single day. We're so grateful for you.
Thank you for having me.
I wanted to ask any one of you who wants to answer, given everything that you've seen with people trying to put vouchers to use and having a hard time doing that, how do you think this bill will make that issue, make things easier for people in the future?
As one of the previous folks giving testimony said, this will create a disincentive for landlords that are violating city code to continue to do so. And I like the idea of the public education campaign. Councilperson Landau was talking about it, because I think that the more word gets out, then the more effective this will be. Solving the problem of affordable housing that faces Philadelphia isn't about a single tool that is going to get us out of the mess that we're in, but it's about using all of the available resources at our disposal. And this is an important one. It's one that, because of landlord refusal to honor their responsibilities under the code, has been a challenge to use in a way that benefits the voucher holders to the greatest extent, as well as combats displacement as much as possible. So we're really excited that this will be able to move us forward on two important fronts.
Thank you.
Is this mic on? Yeah. It will take that, it feels like almost like the Amazing Race, where you have to race to get the voucher to a landlord, and it'll take that part off the individual's back, especially people who need accessible housing. If the property manager and the landlords are educated on it and they still refuse, we now have a bill in place that will say, no, you can't do that no more. You have to abide by these, and it'll also help out the Public Relations Commission as well, because right now it takes, a year, when there'll be other means in place for the individual looking for housing to say, all right, let's go about this a whole nother way.
Yeah. Thank you. We only like The Amazing Race when it's on TV, not when,
right.
Not as a symbol for people looking for housing. So thanks. Did you want to add anything?
I think this bill will build awareness, not only for just landlords, but the clients as well, but more so for the landlords, because I don't think they get the concept of the fact that at least 70% of the rent is paid by Section 8 and 30% is paid by the client. And even if you don't meet those standards, the Section 8, they will pay the 100% of the rent payment of the voucher, which give that client, some clients, that opportunity to build themselves, to become employed, to reach the requirements that most landlords ask for when you do come to their properties. The one thing they do ask is about your employment and if you can meet the rent in case you lose the voucher.
Yeah. Vice Chair Landau?
Yeah, just a comment, LaToya, to the extra obstacles that people with disabilities sometimes go through to find accessible housing. I think that maybe one part of the education campaign can be a partnership with Liberty Resources, PHDC, and the Commission on Human Relations to also advertise the programs of adaptive modification, trying to push PHDC. We can make it go a little faster, especially if somebody has a Section 8 voucher and there is a time on it. But there's also a small landlord loan program there now. So if you want to just do a small adjustment to your house, sometimes these are things that landlords aren't thinking about, they don't know about, but it could be part of the campaign that we can go out and educate landlords, make sure more of the housing is accessible.
Right.
Thank you. Anything?
Thank you, Chairwoman Gaudier and Vice Chair Landale, for bringing us to this moment. This is obviously important legislation that needs to advance. And to all the testifiers, thank you, LaToya, Tanya, Garrett. We can make the laws, but sharing the information with the community is, many times you're closer to the ground than we are when it comes to getting the word out. So I would just encourage all the testifiers that were here, and Garrett, you'll have a big leadership role with all the CDCs that are in all our districts, that we can let folks know that this is an opportunity, not a prohibition. So thank you.
No, I think that's important. I love the idea of the education campaign, but also, leading up to having this hearing, we actually convened a work group with the BIA of landlords, directly with Kelvin Jeremiah and his team at PHA. And I do think there are a lot of misconceptions about the program that landlords didn't know about. But I also think there was good information shared from the landlord community to PHA about getting more landlords to willingly participate. So I'm hopeful that over time, as we do more engagement, as we do more education, and as we crack down on discrimination, that this will more be seen as a win-win-win, right, for tenants, for the landlords, and for PHA and other agencies offering vouchers. So thank you. Thank you so much for your testimony. Is there anyone else that wishes to testify on this bill? Seeing no one else here to testify on the bill, this concludes the public hearing. We will now go into a public meeting to consider the action to be taken on the bill heard today. And I think we need to get quorum back. So. Can the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Squilla? Present. Councilmember Driscoll? Present. Vice Chair Landau?
Present.
Chair Gaudier?
Present. The chair recognizes Vice Chair Landau for a motion on the amendment to Bill number 240060.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I offer an amendment to Bill number 240060. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee. I move that the amendment to Bill number 240060 be approved.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to Bill number 240060 be approved. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it and the motion carries, and the amendment to Bill number 240060 has been approved. The chair recognizes Vice Chair Landau for a motion on Bill number 240060 as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that Bill number 240060 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded that Bill number 240060 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it and the motion carries. Bill number 240060 as amended will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, with a request that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading at the next session of council. This concludes the business of the Committee on Housing, Neighborhood Development, and the Homeless today. Thank you all very much for your attendance.
Thank you.
Thank you.